Good old Daryl and Bashar. Something he shouldn't be communing with, in my humble opinion. Old school, controlled opposition, and he is a con man. The fellow that I'm calling attention to is old school, controlled opposition. He's a con man, and anybody with a brain in their head could figure this out if they thought for themselves and they challenged this horse shit. Here's a video online promoting disinformation, but what the fuck do I know?
He fully leave this planet.
Whoops.
As far as I know,
Did the Anunnaki fully leave this planet?
as far as I know, they were recalled because what they did, as in my understanding, as Bashar has explained it, what they did, they shouldn't have done. They weren't supposed to genetically engineer the native species at all. And therefore, by having done that to aid and assist them in their work, I think my understanding of the story is that they were actually recalled. And then the rest of the Anunnaki had to sort of guide us for a while to make sure we could sort of survive on our own. And that's where all the ancient stories of the gods come in that are intervening, with humanity and all that kind of stuff.
The giants too?
That's more the idea of the early Anunnaki actually mating with human women.
So keep in mind, we don't live on a wandering star. Earth isn't a planet. It's not a wandering star. The premise behind this is that something can get into the system that we are a part of, while our masters coincidentally have firebombed the upper regions of our realm. And I know that probably sounds wild to people. You can look up Operation Starfish Prime and shit like that. Do look it up. There are numerous names with those operational titles involved in that, some of which didn't go off and blew up on the launch pad and other shit like that. But back to point. Why would our masters be doing that? While also echoing the message, you can look up Hillary Clinton talking about shattering the glass ceiling. It's one of many low-level puppets, our low-level masters, stewards of the District of Columbia, who have openly stated these things if the system was in fact open. In other words, physics be damned. Actual physics be damned. An atmosphere magically terminates at the threshold of a vacuum and all of that somehow functions. And you and I are still here and everything works and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. None of it makes any sense. But people repost this. People repeat this shit. Now, the tricky thing is this is what I mean by lesser magic. When I talk about lesser magic, and most people don't understand that at all. I had a guy babbling about what part of this, that, and the other thing has to do with magic, man. Tell me what kind of spells they're casting. You gotta think for yourself, for fuck's sake. And I hate using this word because it's been dragged through the mud and also involves Hillary Clinton. Stick with me. So the Disclosure Project, which is all alien horseshit, test tube alien horseshit propaganda, it's funded and moderated by the Rockefeller Trust, and anybody with a brain in their head could look that up and figure that out, but they don't. And originally, Hillary Clinton was also involved in financing the initial steps of that. Today, that project is known as Gaia, because our masters rebrand things and sell it to the next generation, and then they buy into it. But people don't look into these things, so people don't realize that. If you look closely, if I click see more, it says Disclosure 2023. Now, when you hear lesser magic, part of what this guy, Daryl, rattles off has to do with the Book of Enoch and other things like that. And you should familiarize yourself with the oldest known 3 copies of the Bible that we're aware of, that were rediscovered in Ethiopia, and there are 84 books in total. Not 88 books, 84. Not 66 books, 84. And the difference between 84 and 66 is 18, which is the flower of life. Make of that what you will. So he mentions something having to do with that, and then he drags it through the mud, which is how this shit works. That's how lesser magic works. Our masters tell you something, but because you don't put in the time and you're not building things up for yourself, you're not invested, which means you're not involved, you will not have eyes to see. You will not understand what you're being told in between this mixture of bullshit. And because a lot of people are decent people at heart, they are also too trusting. They're susceptible to buying into this shit instead of looking into it, and then they repeat it. So the folks who repeat this jazz, they're not necessarily horrible people, but they are doing our master's bidding. They are promoting disinformation, lies, propaganda, absolute horse shit. Absolute fucking horse shit. Meant to mislead others and themselves. But they're not invested, which means they didn't look into it. Which means they bought into it.
Creating the demigods and all of that kind of stuff. So again, not something they probably should have done, and we're obviously part of them. If that whole story holds water, we're part Anunnaki. That's why our genetics are what they are. Why things could be very confused here for us. Why there's such a mix of people. So the story isn't complete yet, but so far that's what we've been told from Bashar.
What is the link with the Anunnaki and the Egyptians? Is there any link there?
There may be. That's more recent. The Anunnaki were hundreds of thousands of years ago. The idea, though, that they spawned, once humanity was kind of guided to a certain point, it spawned advanced civilizations like what we call Lemuria and Atlantis. Yeah. And I think it's more the advanced civilization of Atlantis that affected the early Egyptian civilization.
There's another bullshit narrative he's rattling off. Remember, Atlantis is a second-hand account that Plato was given, allegedly. Remember, Plato was tutored by Pythagoras, who ran the Pythagorean cult, the Pythagorean order, who explicitly kept, or maybe not explicitly, how should I put it? Intentionally did not disseminate answers to the masses. It was a boys' club, a secret society. The masses were not supposed to know what they knew. So why would Plato tell everybody under the sun about Atlantis? And keep in mind, the Atlantean tale has nothing to do with what he just said. At all. Everything else is a flowery daydream. It's a flowery adult fairy tale. It's people embellishing on a second-hand account, of which we have no other information whatsoever. Just speculation and lies. And people repeat it. You can find Billy C. Billy, is it Carson, here on TikTok, and he will tell you all about T-H-O-T or T-H-O-T-H being the Atlantean. It's made up shit because he's also controlled opposition. Not in place to help you, not in place to benefit the masses, but to mislead them. To walk you down the primrose path. And that's what these people are doing. Let's see how many people are following this. It's a lot of people following this jazz, and clearly this account's not censored. I talk about shit that reflects reality. I got 4 people in my 3rd TikTok account because the first 2, well, the first one was deleted. The second one I disbanded because I was about to be deleted. And I didn't want them to burn my information, which they did with my other information on the first account. Because this jazz is run by patently fascist trash. That's who moderate all of the social engineering platforms. It's another thing you could look into, but most people don't.
And started.
Remember, if you look up the Davos panel, which is the public forum, it's the flip side of the Bilderberg group. There are transcripts you could read. And our masters openly stated that they were going to give us a form of communication to promote bullshit narratives like this. And it's working quite well. That's why you got AOL for free. That's why you got free cell phones when you sign up for a plan. And that's why these social engineering platforms, duds call social media, are free. And that's why the shit in your feed is a slush pile. It's superficial shit for superficial people who are not invested, which means they're not involved. They bought into it instead of looking into it. What the fuck do I know?